Well, welcome and thank you for joining us today. Books, Beauty, and Business, blog, and podcast. Our goal is to motivate and inspire others to push limits, test boundaries, and climb personal ladders of success. And I am so excited to have with us today Ginny Ellsworth. She is an intuitive coach and best-selling author. Her new book that just was released, Making Spirit-Led Decisions for Your Marriage. Congratulations on that, Ginny.
Thank you, Tani.
We're so excited to have you today. So first, tell us, where did the story come from for making spirit-led decisions? Like, how did you start on this journey?
Yeah, so you need a little bit of backstory to get to how this book actually came to be. I set out I'm a writer by trade and do content strategy for companies large and small, and decided I was getting so many ghostwriting inquiries that I decided I was going to kind of create a system so that people typically don't know how much a ghostwriter costs, and what they actually need is like coaching through telling their own story. So I was like, okay, this is a path I want to pursue.
Okay.
So Tani, this book kind of had its own way of coming into the world. I did not set out to write a book that was my story, especially this story that I've held on to and been ashamed of for so many years. I set out as a writer by trade. I was working with a lot of authors who were trying to publish their first books, and instead of ghostwriting for them, I was coaching them through the process. So I set out to write a book about how everyone has an impactful story. Your story can make a difference in somebody's life, and set out to create a course coaching people through their own writing process and using intuition as a part of that. Well, God stopped me in my tracks on that one and said, you can't teach other people how to use their own stories until you use yours first. Wow. So making spirit-led decisions for your marriage weaves my story of 2 marriages and 2 divorces, still being in a conservative Christian environment, and everything that kind of piled up on me around the stigma of divorce, and then the impact that being divorced twice had on my own identity, how I viewed myself even. And this book kind of streamlines the process of eliminating outside influences and bringing it back to your relationship with God. Don't worry about what everybody else thinks. Don't worry about all these rules that you've been taught that you have to follow and the right thing to do. What between you and God, what is actually the right thing for you? And getting back to that. So it was really like a divine surprise. I feel like I've been entrusted with this information to help people make the best decision for them, no matter what they're going through.
Yes. That is like, it almost takes my breath away, which doesn't happen very often. Like, that is really deep. And the fact that you're helping them walk through this, because I did read the book when it came out, and it almost, for me, also solidified, the relationship that I'm in. And so it does take you through a process of, and I've, been in my fair share of bad relationships and divorced. And I think when you're in that moment, a lot of outside influence, they affect you, right? And how you're going through it. And to know that where you're at is a good place to be. And if you're not, getting yourself there is so important. So tell me a little bit more about the coursework that you're doing with people around your book.
So I'm still a student of all of this myself. And one person who I'm learning from is Dr. Joe Dispenza, who does a lot of teaching on neurological things and how your brain works, how your brain functions. And I was actually just watching a video of his this morning, Tani, about how when you go into fight or flight mode, your innate knowingness shuts down and the analytical mind takes over. That is how we are wired as humans. And so in this process, you have to be aware of the analytical mind taking over. You have to be aware of what those outside influences are that your analytical mind is gripping onto, so that you can actually hear your intuition, which is the Holy Spirit speaking through us. The Holy Spirit doesn't typically speak in a shout. I will admit that there have been times in my life where the Holy Spirit has to shout at me and get in my face. But typically it's a whisper, and the Bible talks about that. But because of the way we're built as humans and our brains, it's so easy just to let the analytical mind take over. And any of these big decisions, whether it's to stay in or leave your relationship, or a big career change, or a big move, all of these things, it's so easy just to go with it and let the analytical mind take over. So in this coursework that I'm building out, and we're going to have small groups working around this, no matter what decision you're making, it's to walk you through the process. Now, it's no secret that I'm a huge fan of journaling. So a lot of this work involves, like, I'm going to teach you something and give you a journal prompt related to that. And I want you to wrestle with it. I want you to work your way through it, because that's what's going to move you forward.
Wow. I'm excited already for people to understand this and have a better knowing. When I talk to people that are even transitioning in life, sometimes, you know, especially right now with COVID and everything else, there's career changes, there's new things to deal with, there's new decisions to make, and to have a tool to really walk you through that, I think is such an important thing. That some of us, you're right, that analytical mind will take over.
Yeah. And I know for me, in my history, not only does the analytical mind take over, but also that's kind of celebrated. Like, good for you. You did the pros and cons, and you wrestled with this decision for a long time. And I think that it's good to let all of that play a role, but that can't be the foundation of your decision, or you're going to have a lot of regrets later.
It's kind of like the mapping of the decision, where you just make sure you've taken the big picture in, and it's not just maybe a couple pieces of the big picture, but almost holistically, like body, mind, and soul. Let's make sure we're aligned here, and we're making the right move forward.
Yeah. And that brings up another thing that I dedicate an entire chapter to in this book. And that is, like, how do you quiet the analytical mind? It's a concept that is foreign to a lot of us who've grown up in the church. It's meditation. And I think that in a lot of scenarios, when something is foreign, you think that it's scary or that it's bad. And meditation it's getting more and more popular, just at a really even basic level, for the impact it has on stress and reducing stress. But that's how you quiet the mind and come back to center. And I feel like that is such an important thing. It doesn't have to be a big scary thing. You don't have to meditate for an hour every morning. But there's kind of a, like, this is a foreign concept, and where do I start? And also, is it bad? Like, does that mean I had someone ask me, I won't name names because he's probably going to watch this video, but someone asked me since I meditate now, if I had gotten into Eastern religions. And I think that that is a common misconception, that even though meditation is more popular in Eastern religions, it's not necessarily related to a religion. One of my favorite quotes, who it's been quoted over and over many times, and the author is unknown, but it is that prayer is talking to God and meditation is the act of listening to God. So I feel like that's something really important to teach. And that in and of itself, along with all of these interpersonal exercises to identify outside influences and debunk them, meditation is also a key component. And that's something that takes extra steps to learn and practice and to get familiar in a space that you're already comfortable in.
Yeah, and I think that's true. I definitely think it's becoming more popular. And anytime you listen to someone that talks about high performance habits and people, they're like, how do you deal with stress? And meditation is something on that list every time, it seems like. But you're right. People hear meditation, they're like, oh, you just sit there and breathe. And you're like, well, okay, that's part of it. But there are steps to getting into that relaxed state and quieting your mind. And some people just don't even like to be alone with themselves or their thoughts long enough to meditate. I think that's another whole thing to think about sometimes. But people aren't quiet enough now. It's the world of constant and instant gratification. You're on your phone or you're on this device or you're working, and even in the downtime, they're in front of a screen. And so to know the benefits and how important it really is, I think that gets lost on so many people because they're so inundated and they haven't gone through the process to learn the skill that you just referenced. Like there's a process and a skill to it. And it's not, you can't just sit down one day and you're like, oh, that was like so zen. It takes a little effort, right? It doesn't have to be long, long period of time, but it's just that short break of stillness. And I love that quote, the unknowns are always the best quotes, right? But
right, they are.
I think that's a really important part. And let's talk about the book that you wrote for the kiddos, because I feel like it's a perfect time right now. This is a great Christmas present for anyone with little people, that if you do feel that this is a life skill, which I truly think it's a life skill, this is a great introduction to it.
Yes. So I did have a book released several months before making, I knew that was going to happen.
I think you did, because you said it already. That was great.
I know. I said that's going to fall over before we even started. I did release a book several months before releasing Making Spirit-Led Decisions for the kiddos about meditation. It's called Rise Up, Reach for Your Light. It's illustrated by Lisa Wee, who I worked with before on Magic Kids. And Rise Up, I adapted a meditation. So it came from a couple of places, but primarily, if you know me well, you know that my nephews keep my heart in a jar on their nightstand. And my nephew Pablo was having some anxiety, and they've had, like any kids, this pandemic has been hard on the kiddos, you know? And I had started writing Rise Up before the pandemic, but it kind of put a fire under me to get it done, because it's about the different emotions that you feel and what to do with them, how to get re-centered. And it took a meditation that I did every day, usually sitting in traffic with my eyes open, of how to visualize a light. And it could be, I did not make this book specific to any religion, but if you want to identify that light as the light of God, then that's great. It's about calming the nervous system and bringing you back, and that starts in the mind. So it It's not related to religion, but it's about visualizing the light and bringing the light down and letting the light fill you up, and how that recenters you. And then you're in a good place where you can give that light away too. And in the back, there is a meditation for the grown-ups too. So
nice.
it kind of explains it in a little more detail. And it's a fun way. Lisa did such a great job with these illustrations of depicting things. This is one of my favorite pages, depicting these abstract concepts. She did such a good job. So Rise Up, it is a fun Christmas gift. And it's also a great place to start if you're not familiar with meditation, whether you're a kiddo or a grown-up.
I love it. I just thought of like everyone with a little person, I can send that to as a great starting point. I think it's needed and definitely would be appreciated. So how did Pablo do with it? Like, what was his experience?
You know, this might make me emotional. No, I want to share. So last week, it was the holidays, and I thought my book cover was going to fall again. It was during the holidays, Thanksgiving, and he was out of his normal routine. And we were talking about that. And I asked him, this was before, just with the holidays approaching, I asked him how he was feeling about his anxiety and asked him if he knew what to do. And this was, I had not brought up the book. I hadn't brought up the concepts that I introduced in the book. And I asked him if he knew what to do when he feels his anxiety creeping in. And without hesitation, it's going to make me teary. He said, yeah, Aunt Ginger, I follow your book. And he was not staying at his house for a couple of nights. And he said, in fact, I think I'm going to bring your book with me. I just really love it. And I'm like, okay, mission accomplished. That's, that's why I wrote it, you know? So it's great. Pablo is 9. And it's great for them to be able to connect, and makes me feel good that I've provided a tool for them to be able to connect the dots and have a tool to get them back to a centered place.
Yeah, I think that's very impressive. And it, you know, it's a lot of work when you're putting, you know, all this effort into your writing and into your books and the publications, and now the courses that you're going to offer. So I'm really excited to learn more and to be a part of it. And I know we've done a couple book recommendations now. So of course we have to get into, you know, any advice for the ladies and your favorite beauty tip as well.
Okay. So I have a new obsession, and per usual, everybody else is probably way ahead of me on this. But I am addicted to Beauty Counter, and I tried it. I tried out a face wash several years ago. One of my friends started posting on Instagram, so I knew she was selling it, and I was looking for a new face wash. So I reached out, and I didn't love it. And then I kind of didn't love the customer service either. Well, a new friend who I met this year in the process of getting my certification, we were just chatting. She sells it also. And I'm like, you know, I should probably just give it another try. And she had me take pictures of the makeup products that I use and I like. And then she equated what I was using and I like to some Beauty Counter offerings. And the Flawless in 5, it's like putting a Snapchat filter on your face in less than 5 minutes.
Oh, wow.
That's what I'm wearing right now. And I love it. I'm so addicted to it. And I just love that she took things that I already loved and recommended clean products to me.
Okay, so that's what I was going to ask you. I have not heard of the Beauty Counter. So these are natural, clean products?
Yes.
Okay.
So they're clean products, and you and I both drink clean wine already.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I try to use clean products anyway, but also my clean products typically come from Target. So if they're making them in bulk, I'm not sure exactly how clean they are, even though they're claiming to be clean. And I still have some of those products that I really love. But Beauty Counter is clean products.
Okay, definitely. I will have to check that out. I have a company a couple that I like as well that are clean. Arbonne was one of my favorites.
Yeah.
I've been using that for the last 20 years. Like I should definitely have been
Arbonne kind of like floated under the surface in my life, but I've seen it recently resurfacing.
Yeah, so excellent. Well, I always love new products, especially clean ones. We're really careful what we put on our bodies and in our bodies, try to be, right? So
yeah,
excellent. Well, I've really enjoyed learning today more about your courses and your books and your message just in general that you're giving and you're providing. Is there a certain audience or the ladies out there listening, any advice that you'd like to give them?
I think that the biggest advice, and something that I talk about in the book too, is really the actual definition of self-care. So when I say make sure you're making time for self-care, that doesn't necessarily mean, planning a girls' nights with massages and wine, which all of that is good too, but true self-care, taking care of what's on the inside. Make sure that, especially with the pandemic going on and this busy holiday season, that you're carving out that quiet time. And I know, easy for me to say, I have a quiet house. And I know with kids running around, it's a whole lot harder to do that, but it is so important. And I truly believe that you will be guided a lot more clearly if you make time, that quiet time. And also you'll be a better parent, and you'll notice your interactions with other people are, more meaningful, or you react less. It's just so important to take that time for self-care.
That's such great advice. Like it changes your whole outlook when you find time to do that. And I feel like sometimes there's ebb and flows. Like I'll be so consistent and so good with it. And then other times it's like out the window, I'm so busy. And those reminders, it's like you want those constant reminders in your life to not forget things like that. That's so important to just sit down and stop and do that. That's great advice.
And it's okay if you can't find 30 minutes, find 5 minutes, but make that 5 minutes count, deep breaths, close your eyes, block it all out, and just recharge.
Yes, that's great. Well, thank you so much again for your time today. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks for having me. I always love being on Books, Beauty, and Business. It's so fun.
Thank you so much for your time, and good luck and happy holidays. Thank you everyone for tuning in and listening today. If you haven't subscribed, please click below to subscribe. All of Jenny's contact information, the links to her books will be available for you, and her direct contact if you want to reach out and talk more and learn more about the programs that she's offered. Thank you, everyone.